And here we are back for another episode of the Cowbell Podcast. We're joined by Kelvin Yip. G'day, Kelvin. How are you, mate?
Good, Dave. How are you? Good to
I'm
see
very,
you.
very, very, very well. Tonight's episode is a very special one. Off the back of International Women's Day, we're going to introduce you to Jess Baird Walsh. Jess is not only a personal friend of mine, but also an incredible woman and a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, but also a trail ultra running extraordinary person. Jess, welcome to the Cowbell.
Thanks so much, Dave and Kelvin. It's great to be here. Really excited for the chat.
Yeah, Jess, obviously, since Calvin and I have kicked this off, both of us have put our heads together about people that we admire and people that we follow, and you came to mind straight away. The fact that it actually falls on or just post International Women's Day is quite extraordinary in itself because you're an advocate for business women and International Women's Day. But just to kick us off, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your running story, and yeah, let's go from there.
Awesome. Thanks very much for that kind intro, Dave. Obviously my name's Jess. I'm based in Sydney, mother of three, work a busy full-time job, as well as having a number of projects that I do on the side, including Capital X, which you mentioned before, Dave, which is an initiative to support women in technology and startups to raise their share of venture capital funding that goes to women running technology businesses. I do that on the side of my full-time job, and my other passion, as you both know, is running. And I'm quite a few days into a running streak now, which has been an incredible journey of sort of introspection, fitness, and purpose. And yeah, super excited to get into the conversation with you both.
Now, when you say quite a few days into a running journey, folks, just get this for a second, and Jess is going to explain why and how this has come about. Jess has been running every day, and today is 981 days. I'm just going to repeat that, folks. 981 consecutive days running. Even ran while she was on holidays in Japan this year in the snow and everything like that. Jess, explain to us what is the reason behind your this extraordinary, extraordinary undertaking that you are in the process of doing.
Yes, so it has taken on a bit of a life of its own, if I'm honest, Dave. The beginnings of it really were I was going through a really difficult time. I had left a business that I'd raised venture capital for, and it was really difficult. I felt like I'd let a lot of people down, and I really needed something that I could use as a tool to give me back that structure during a really difficult phase of my life. And running is something that I've relied on through difficult periods, through dark periods, in order to get me through and to provide that structure. And I decided, given this point, I found myself suddenly sort of at a juncture where I had been really intensely in the business and I had more time on my hands than I was expecting to have. So I decided I'm going to commit to running a minimum of 5Ks every day for 30 days. I got to the end of 30 days and I kept going, decided to run 365 days, but didn't tell anyone, and then found myself in a work situation where someone said to me, "So how long are you going to keep this going for?" And before I knew it, I had just said out loud in front of a bunch of people, "I'm going to run every single day for 365 days." There was no way that I wasn't going to hold myself to that commitment, which I'd already made internally, but, making it public is a different level of accountability. So that's how it started. It was a 30-day plan initially, and I got to the end of 365 days. I kept going. And it really wasn't until I kind of crossed the 2-year mark where I started to really question, I've been going for over 700 days. What is my deeper purpose for doing this? And what are the other things that I need to think about as I consider what my running journey is going to look like from here?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, go, Kelvin.
Yeah, so just I would love to find hear more like when you said you embrace running, right, during the difficult period. what makes you think about running, but not like other things to do, like cycling, swimming? Have you always been a runner yourself deep down? Because I think a lot of people may have similar experience, like when they face adversity, like what make them tick and start embracing running, or has anyone mentioned to you, hey, Jess, maybe you can start running? Like, I just want to know, like, if you can share with us.
Yeah, there were probably two things that happened when I was a teenager. So, firstly, I was not a sporty kid. I was very active. I lived on a farm. We rode bikes. We
Mm.
played in the creek. We were, super active kids. So it wasn't that we were couch potatoes. Actually, we had no TV when I was growing up. So we were very active and outdoorsy, but no organized sport, no, organized running, or anything like that. And so I never thought of myself as a sporty person. One day, I think I was in grade 8 at school. It was the school cross country, and I just decided, instead of telling myself that I can't run, I will just give it a crack. And I ended up going to zone, off the back of that. And so I think that was probably the first thing that sparked
Yeah.
an idea within me that I could do that, and I could push past my own self-imposed limits of what I thought I was capable of. And so I think that was what planted the seed. When I moved to Sydney, I grew up in regional New South Wales, and I went, to the local public school there. And I moved down to Sydney and went to a big university and found myself surrounded by really impressive students from, incredible private schools and, lots of privilege. And for me, it wasn't a great environment, and I really struggled with the situation that I found myself in on a personal level. And I was chatting to a GP at one point, and he said, "Look, I think you've got a few options, but one of the things I think you should think about is taking up running." And
Mm.
that was it. It was, sort of like I started running, and I really haven't stopped using running as a tool. I was 18 then, and I really haven't stopped using running as a tool to help me through, both difficult times, but also, it's been something that's given me so much joy through, I've met some of my best friends through running. I've run all over the world in different ways, shapes, and forms. And so it's been that kind of constant companion. And yes, it has been a tool that I've used at different points to get through really dark times, but also just day to day as a busy working mum of three, as someone who has lots of different things going on. I really think of running as my meditation now. I think sometimes I run with music or podcasts. Often I run with no sort of stimulus. And for me, I really find that it is a very effective way to file my thoughts and to work through whatever it might be, a challenging situation at work, or just lots of things I've got to organize. And I find I might leave the house or leave work. As I think you guys both know, I've just run here from work. By the time I get out the door and back in the door of wherever I'm going, I've managed to file a bunch of thoughts, and I can launch into whatever the next phase is of my day so much more energized and with so much more clarity than what I had before I went on that run.
So you set the target of 30 days, it goes to 365, and then you've just mentioned you get to 2 years. And then you've mentioned you're a busy mum of three, working and your own businesses and everything like that. One, how do you fit it all in? But then where the support of your husband Dave and the kids, how's that all come about? How's that come to fruition? And are they 100% behind you?
Yes, they are 100% behind me. Something that's really funny is, every morning when the kids come downstairs, even though I've been running, pretty regularly in the morning since they were born, my husband Dave, will always have a laugh and, kind of roll his eyes, because they come downstairs and they always ask the same question: "Where's mom?" That's pretty funny. But yes, I mean, I think my husband will be the first one. Obviously it hasn't happened for nearly 3 years now that I haven't been for a run, but he will be the first one to encourage me historically to get out the door and put my shoes on if I haven't been for a run for a few days, because he knows what a game changer it is for me. And for us as a couple and as a family, activity is really, really important, and we prioritize that. So he plays tennis, he's very active himself. And we're really deliberate about creating that space for each other because we really place a lot of importance on it, and we know how much it helps us to function and to show up in the other ways that we want to show up in the world. So yeah, I think that's really important, to make space for your partner to do that, because if one makes space for the other one, then it becomes reciprocal, and it becomes a sort of real feel-good situation, rather than feeling bad because one person's out and about. Obviously, with running 981 days straight, there's quite a big concession on his side, but he's incredibly supportive because he knows how much it means to me. So very grateful for that.
And that's a theme that we're starting to hear here, is obviously with running, and it does give you that clarity, but it also gives you that inspiration or something to be able to aspire to a goal, because you can have that time. And we spoke to Emma there in our last pod, where she spoke about emotion, and the word emotion has motion in it, and obviously that creates that. But for you, it sounds like that when you're running, that does give you that clarity, and it does give you the headspace to be able to do all these incredible things and to manage everything that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is for me. Like I said before, I heard someone describe it as a sort of really effective way to file thoughts. And for me, it definitely is that. Is like I do my highest order thinking when I'm running. And oftentimes I need to get down and write things down because I've processed so many things while I've been out on my feet, and not even necessarily consciously, really sort of subconscious processing of thoughts and ideas. So yeah, for me, it's incredibly helpful. And I do think that for me, it's a flow state that other people get through meditation and breath work. For me, I find the seated meditation styles to be quite difficult. And I think a lot of purist meditation practitioners would say that what I'm doing is not meditation. But for me, the experience of how I process thoughts and the clarity that it gives me, to me, I liken it to what some people describe from that seated meditation and breathwork practice.
Oh,
Amazing.
I love that.
Jess,
That is cool.
hey Jess, so I mean, obviously, very like it's hard to think about like you continuously running for 981 days. What is the hardest part for you, like to have that persistency? Because I mean, like many things in our life, like a lot of time is not about achieving just one goal. Like it is a continuously be persistent and have progress, right? Right. So what is the hardest part that you faced during the last 2 years, 3 years now? 980.
Yeah, coming up to
Um,
3 years.
yeah, it would be love to share your thought, something that maybe you can inspire people that like to how to become so persistent, for continuously for 3 years, right?
Well, I was laughing with a friend the other day who was saying he wouldn't be a good runner and he wouldn't be able to run, multiple days straight. And I said, a little bit tongue in cheek, but I said, all you need is 2 feet and a really stubborn attitude. So, there is a degree of sort of tenacity, I think, that, you have to apply if you're going to run that many days in a row. But actually, for me, it has become easier to run 7 days, even though it seems really counterintuitive. It has become easier to run 7 days than it used to be to run 3 days a week. Just for me, the way my mind processes things, and especially being busy, which I'm sure everyone can relate to, I find it much easier to run 7 days because I know that I can't put it off until tomorrow. You have to find the place to fit it in. So either you get up and do it at work, you do it at lunchtime, you do it after work, you do it after dinner if you have to, but you have to fit it in. And it has, after almost 3 years, it has just become a non-negotiable part of my day. It's a non-negotiable part of family life. And that's been through, good times and days where I'm feeling really great and healthy. It's been through, I probably wouldn't and shouldn't advocate for this, so don't try this at home. It's been through 2 bouts of COVID. It's been through
Wow.
brutal hangovers. It's been through jet lag. It's been through kids being sick. It's been through, running through really busy periods at work. one day I was running at Bondi with no shoes on, soft sand running at Bondi, kicked 2 toenails off my feet, and bandaged my feet up and ran again the next day. I think the doctor thought maybe I had other problems, but it's just really about that consistency for me. The reason I've kept doing it, the 30 days and the 365 and then the 2 years, is because of the ways that has flowed on into other areas of my life. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about the sort of challenge that I'm doing now. Is I've seen the benefits of that sort of consistency and self-discipline. It started off with that cross country at high school. It then became, taking up running as an 18-year-old. It then became training for a half marathon. It then became running through, postnatal depression with my kids, and training for a full marathon, and training for a 50K, and all these things that I didn't think I would ever be able to do. If you had asked me 3 years ago, would I have ever thought that I would be running 980 days? I would say absolutely not. But here we are, and that consistency has given me so much self-confidence in other areas of my life that, yeah, I'm just really grateful that my body has allowed me to keep doing it.
Geez, yesterday morning when it was raining and miserable, I really struggled to get out of bed and go for a trail run. And so you're putting me to shame here. I did get up, by the way. I did go out.
Yeah.
But and that was a great question, Kelvin, because I mean,
Mm.
for many people, it is that rhythm, that consistency. And I know what you mean in terms of, you say on a 7-day routine is easier than a 3-day for sure, because you do get in that practice. And we will get to the reason now and the new project that we've spoken about. But on that, you mentioned your GP. What about diet? What about what it's actually physically doing to your body?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I've been quite deliberate about, in at least in the first part of the challenge, was uh I don't run 100 Ks a day. I'm really optimizing for longevity here. I'm not trying to run 3-minute Ks. For the first couple of years in particular, I was running, probably an average of about 6.5 Ks a day, between, minimum of 5, but probably about 6.5 Ks a day. I did a couple of longer runs. The COSI 50, which was a great to see you at the end there, Dave, and my physio. I went to my physio beforehand and I said, look, I've only been running 5Ks a day. Like, I haven't been training any stairs. I haven't been doing any specific prep. He's like, you have run every day for 6 months or something. It was by that point, 5.5 months by that point. He was like, just don't try to win it and get out there and just, you've got a great base. So I think that's definitely held true. And I am starting to work with a coach now, because sort of 3 years in, I don't want to, like, I also want to get better as a runner. I want to get stronger. I want to implement more discipline around strength work and, core and functional strength. And so I am working with a coach now. As I'm doing that, and as the quality and strength work is also ramping up alongside ramping up the mileage on a weekly basis, I do have to be more consistent about eating and more deliberate about the eating. And so that's one thing that she's been talking to me a lot about, is really being careful of the macros, because the legs have 1,000 days, well, almost 1,000 days straight in them. And that means they're relatively strong, but I also have to be careful about how I look after them moving forward. And nutrition is a critical part of that. So making sure I'm getting enough protein, making sure I'm getting enough carbs, and so on and so forth. So yeah, being much more deliberate about that over the last couple of months.
Wow. Incredible. So part of it is then now this new goal, or it's not new because it's been part of it now, but tell us a little bit about the IMF. Tell us a little about what you're doing, and your association with the Indigenous Marathon Foundation.
Yeah, so as we were talking about sort of just before the podcast started, I really did, as I crossed over that 2-year point, start to go into kind of a reflective state on why am I doing this? I've been running every day, really, really with the goal of having a deep accountability to myself, and really just doing it for me. And I guess I came to a juncture where I had to start thinking about my purpose for continuing to run every day. And what I started thinking about was how I balanced my personal goals. And to date, my longest run has been 50K trail ultra, but I definitely have aspirations to do longer trail runs. And I think my body could absolutely handle up to 100 at this point, but not if I'm continuing to run every day, because the training that's required in order to build up to do 100 without injuring yourself means that I would have to start taking rest days. So that was the juncture that I came to. Why am I continuing to run every day? And am I going to stop running every day to start training for 100, or am I going to transition this to a new purpose for running? And I had been training with a group of friends, and on the Friday before the Sydney Marathon last year, I had been thinking a lot about my reasons, as I said, very reflective. And I decided kind of on a whim that I was going to run the Sydney Marathon if I could get a bib. And I got a bib through a friend of a friend, and he was happy to give me the bib. But he did start asking me a bunch of questions around why I was doing it. And he was like, look, I'm injured and I'm happy for you to have the bib, but I don't want to give you the bib and for you to go and injure yourself. So have you been training? And all very kind of very well-intentioned questions. But it did lead to quite a deep conversation around the why for the running. He asked me if I was doing it for a charity, and we talked a lot about personal accountability, personal growth, what running had given to each of us. And it became quite a deep conversation about purpose. So I had originally offered to pay him for the bib, and by the end of the conversation, he was like, I'm absolutely not taking any money from you. Have an amazing day. And so that was quite fresh in my mind when I was running the race. And I wasn't trying to, win any land speed records. I was pretty much just out there to enjoy the day and enjoy this beautiful city. And I found myself really having a great time, just running very easy. And around kilometer 25, I was really kind of reflecting on this conversation that I'd had. And then I saw a man in front of me running in the Indigenous Marathon Project singlet, and I kind of fixated on the singlet, and I was reading the back of the singlet, and I spent the rest of the run kind of wondering who this person was, and wondering something about him. Just I don't know, it's not that often in these runs that you sort of run behind someone and there was something about him. And so between kilometer 25 and kilometer 42, I decided I was going to go away, cross the finish line. Again, saw you at the finish line, Dave, down at Sydney Opera House there. And pretty much as soon as I walked through the chute, I started researching the Indigenous Marathon Foundation and the Indigenous Marathon Project. And it just was a cause that deeply resonated with me as a runner. And it was a cause that it's an organization whose reasons for doing what they do are so deeply rooted in the same reasons that I run, and the way that I've been able to use running as a tool to build resilience, to build my leadership capabilities, to build my sense of purpose, to give back to my community. Those are all the things that the Indigenous Marathon Foundation and the Indigenous Marathon Project are all about. And, what I committed to myself when I was sort of finishing the race is, if this is a cause that and an organization that resonates with me, then that is what I'll dedicate the next phase of my running journey to. And, subsequent to that day, I had decided by the time I left the race, the recovery area, that I was going to continue to run every day and that I was going to fundraise for the IMF. And that's what I'm doing. Over the course of the last 6 months, as I've learned more and more about the organization, it was a little bit spur of the moment, but I couldn't be more thrilled to be working with the IMF. I've met some incredible young Indigenous leaders who've been through the program, and the way they talk about the 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 gift that running has given them and the way that that translates into other areas of their life has been, yeah, just deeply impactful for me, and absolutely, a fantastic cause that I'm so proud to be supporting.
And of course, the IMF founder is the Australian icon, running icon, former Olympian Robert de Castella. I've run at a couple of events that he's been involved in, and the IMF has been a part of that project, and he's still organising those events. And so, tell us, in your words, then, Jess, what is it that Rob de Castella and the IMF crew are doing, and then how is the money that you're raising going to impact, the foundation and the project?
Yeah, so there's really three streams of core programming that the IMF run. One of those is probably the best known, and that's the program that, so it actually turned out that the man I was running behind was a man called Charlie Maher, who was the very first graduate of the Indigenous Marathon Project. So I think that gave it an even sort of greater symmetry. But the Indigenous Marathon Project was the program that Charlie and his and the three other guys who ran in that first cohort graduated from. And that's what IMF is best known for. That's a program that now it takes 12 Indigenous runners from across Australia every year, mostly from non-running backgrounds, through a 6-month program, which includes running, but also includes athletic coaching training, media training, and leadership training. And they go through the running training and the other types of training, and it culminates in them running the New York Marathon every year in November. So that's the program that they're most known for. Really, those 12 runners are selected not on the basis of their running ability, but on their deep sense of purpose. So it's, what are they trying to get out of doing the program? How do they want to use the learnings from the program to build something, give back to their communities, give back to their families? It's, incredibly diverse reasons for doing it, but they're not selected on who can run the fastest time, but really on who wants to make the biggest impact. So 12 of those runners each year that go through the program. The program itself it has great support from the Australian government, but there are a lot of ancillary costs that need to be funded in order to make it possible for those individuals to travel to New York and to complete that sort of full spectrum of the adventure that is the IMP. And so some of the funds that are raised will go towards the ancillary components of that program, but not to the core program itself. And then they also have two other core streams of programming. One is the running and walking groups, which provides safe access to running and walking opportunities in around 40 locations across Australia, including remote Indigenous communities where otherwise there might be significant safety issues in a lot of those places. So obviously, as someone who is very motivated to provide other people with opportunities to run, and also to provide some equality of access to running for women and gender diverse runners and kids, the running and walking groups are a really powerful way that IMF is making that happen in communities across Australia. And finally, they have a program called ICAN, which is a schools-based program which encourages physical activity in schools. It gets kids across Indigenous communities to fall in love with running, provides incentives around school attendance, and also provides opportunities for other types of primary health interventions and sort of testing and so forth within schools. So, for example, nurses in communities can come in and see the kids, and kids are encouraged to go to school. And there's a whole range of other activities that happen. They have sort of an ICAN Games in Canberra. So it's a really diverse set of activities that they run now. now, touching, women, children, community base, and then also the flagship marathon project itself. And so for me, that ticks a lot of boxes of the things that are really, really important to me as an individual and as a human. It's passing on the gift of running and resilience to people across a whole range of different communities.
That's incredible, Jess. I think that showed very important when you run marathon, just staring the finish line like other people jersey.
I know the advertising works, folks. The
Yeah,
advertising on the back
exactly.
of the singlet works.
Well, it
Exactly.
is super interesting because actually the people who've graduated from the IMP, I don't know if they all always run in their IMP jersey, but I'm pretty sure they all do. And I actually had some friends who were running in Tokyo a couple of weeks ago. The Tokyo Marathon was on, and I had been chatting with Jack Stevens, who's the new head coach. He's a graduate from IMP himself, and he's the new head coach now this year for IMP. And I was wishing him luck at the Tokyo Marathon this year. And I was also chatting to some other friends who are going to be running. And I said to my friends, oh, hey, if you see someone in a yellow singlet with the IMP logo on it, it's probably Jack. He's a legend. Say hi. Have a great race. And then I was tracking them all on the app. And about halfway through, I was like, wow, they're running really close together. And next minute, I got a video from my friend Ben of Jack and Georgia running together. And, she had recognized the singlet and they'd had a great chat. It was a beautiful moment. I think everyone who wears that singlet wears it with a great deal of pride and a sense of achievement for not only having completed the program itself, but for the other things that they're doing off the back of that and the what the resilience of running has given them.
So for yourself, you're a very driven individual, obviously. We know that. We've established that now, and we can hear it in everything you've explained. But you've got a lot of your own goals, and whether that be business or whether that be family orientated, and then obviously now running. With the fundraising now, how does that all tie in? How do you mix all of that? Because obviously this is a completely different stream. This is a completely different avenue that you're going down, and something that even hearing you talking about this now, just I mean, I've known about the Indigenous Marathon Foundation for many, many years, but obviously this is something that's now a focus of yours, and with your networking capability. How does it all tie in together, and where to from here? And what is the ultimate goal?
Yeah, so I'm going to keep raising, I'm going to keep running every day until I've raised $1 million for the IMF. I'm
Okay.
very much at the beginning of that journey right now. And honestly, the fundraising is harder than I thought. But I do believe that I know it's possible. It's just a question, like everything else in life, of putting one foot in front of the other. And so, yeah, I'm really committed to achieving that goal. And I'm hoping to be able to do that within the next 3 years. So my plan is to start counting down. Once I get to 1,000, I'm going to start counting down from 1,000. And I will try to hit that goal by the time I get to day one. So we're at $16,000 now, and hopefully March 29th is day 1,000. So we'll start counting down from there.
That's impressive, Jess. I think within 6 months, I think was it like you raised $15,000.
We haven't even really gotten started yet, Kelvin.
I know.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like honestly, every dollar count. And I just want to ask you, like what you just mentioned before, you said it was harder than you originally thought, right? I want to know what was your expectation when you start this, and what was the reason why you found that it's a bit harder than you thought? Was it because you have to explain to people this foundation is because this foundation is actually quite different from other foundation we have heard or come across, right? A lot of foundation obviously for like illness and mental health, right? Like this is like very different, and I love the fact that like this is not only helping Indigenous, but also relate to running, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, back to my questions. Like, what was the reason why you think this is harder than you originally thought?
I mean, I think part of it is just, fundraising, like with anything, it
Mm.
requires a lot of storytelling. I mean, it's like everything, you need to approach a lot of people. If you want to get 1,000 people to donate $1,000, then you probably have to reach out to, 5,000 people. And so that's a big time commitment. My original thought was to raise from businesses, and I am still doing that, but the process of raising from businesses is quite different from raising from individuals, because once you get to a certain type of business, you have to go through all of their due diligence processes. And so I am in process with quite a number of big organizations, but that takes a lot of time. So, it might take 3 months to get to their charity, their charitable giving committee, just, as an example, and then another 3 months to get approval. And so that takes quite a long time. And I guess it's like anything else when you set a target, not dissimilar, obviously different outcome, but not dissimilar to sales, is you need to have a sales funnel. You need to think about which messages are going to resonate with different types of individuals. And, that requires quite a bit of structure. And obviously finding the time to do that amongst the other things. And with the focus on the running, means that I really am, and I'm going to have to really ramp up the commitment to get those 5,000 people in the funnel. That's going to require a lot of conversations.
Yeah. And I believe, Jess, I think you are so well positioned to help the foundation to raise money. And also I understand, I think, on your professional level, like, so you also have also launch a capital raising platform. Is it like we also helping the Women Foundation, right? Like not Women Foundation, women founders.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about? I'm actually quite interested because I mean they all connected. Like so it's all about community helping people. Obviously, I mean the capital raising platform or businesses, it may not be related to running, but again, you're kind of helping those entrepreneurs who are trailblazing, right? Like, so he want to change the world in a sense. Tell us a little bit about that, Jess, if you don't mind.
Well, this is also what I'm getting at, because you're one of the most incredible networkers that I know. So this is what we're trying to dive into here.
Yeah, well, Capital X is really it's a passion project. It's not monetized at this stage. And really it's about, born out of my own experience as a female founder raising capital, um, and just how incredibly difficult that was. I don't think that that's necessarily gendered. I think for every founder raising money, particularly if you're doing it for the first time, it's really hard. But we do know that the cards are pretty stacked against women founders. And so, as someone who had worked really, I didn't come from the startup and VC network background. I had to work really, really hard to, build a strong network. And I'm not someone who believes in transactional relationships. So, building a strong network of people who you have genuine relationships with really takes time. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens quite organically over time. So after having had that experience of raising capital myself, I really wanted to take a step back and think about how can I be a small part of the solution rather than just complaining about the problem. And Capital X is something that I started as essentially a way to democratize access to investment networks for women founders. So it's a network of around 600 female founders, and then investors and other advisors and startup industry professionals who are committed to helping women fund and scale their startups. And it's really about democratizing access to that network. So many women founders find it hard to get in front of investors, and we're trying to make it easier for them to do that. So we're actively making, or continuously making, and actively making introductions across the VC and investment ecosystem for women founders, but increasingly thinking about how we can contribute to a really rich data set that will help to provide a fuller picture of what's happening when it comes to capital raising for women founders, because my view is that we have great data from certain parts of the ecosystem, and there's still a lot more work to be done. So it's it's my way to try to be part of the solution rather than complaining about the problem.
Incredible, Jess. I think we definitely need to have a separate conversation about this. Because
Yes,
I mean
because Kelvin's a bit of an entrepreneur
yeah, I
himself.
mean in startup world for like for quite a long time, and yeah, certainly I think it's important to help support the woman like starting up the business. I guess it's similar to trail running as well. Although I mean, Jess, I think you have been running road running mainly primarily for 980 days, but before this podcast, you actually also mentioned that like you're also a trail runner by heart, and I think they probably have seen a lot of races now. Like the race director actually encouraged the female runner like basically stand at the front of the start line just to give them opportunity um to basically start the race, like because a lot of time you see a lot of race the female are standing right at the back, like so I guess I mean it's all type of like really what can we do, like this could be a small things that we can help the female to flourish and to be a better of themselves and be extraordinary. I mean, back to the podcast, like be extraordinary every day. Yeah.
Well,
So
I think Kelvin, that's I think again, every time we meet these incredible people, we're coming up with different subtopics and sub-subjects here because I mean, and again off the back of International Women's Day, I was up in the mountains on the weekend and I was with a group of runners and we were talking about women in running, and it is a topic. It's something that is now addressed at all of the big races. They have they have specific Q&As and they have specific conversations about women in trail running. So this is something it's happening. Obviously, there's the movement born out of Corinne Malcolm out of the US with women to the front. And even some of my friends that were up in the mountains on the weekend actually had the t-shirts on. So I think I want to come back to Jess for a second because that's another topic of conversation we could go a long way down. So my thing is, Jess, is no wonder you think about so many different things while you're running because when do you sleep? Like honestly, you've got a lot going on here. When do you sleep and to process all these great things? Because just hearing you talk is incredibly inspiring.
I'm a great sleeper, Dave. I don't skimp on my sleep, and that's super important. I love my sleep, and it's I think for anyone who wants to run either long distances or super consistently, sleep is one thing that you can't skimp on. So yeah, I promise you I'm not skimping on my sleep.
Okay, now again, we always and Kelvin, you're right. We do need to have another conversation around this. But this always happens, and I did preface this at the beginning of the chat that we get into the good stuff at the end. But we do want to keep these podcasts to a listenable time frame. But one of the questions that we always ask all of our guests here, Jess, and you may have already answered it there. But what is your cowbell moment? What is a moment where either you are coming into a finish line and you hear the cowbell ringing, or you're out on course like in the Sydney Marathon where you come up behind Charlie there, and maybe that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of renewing my purpose, the you know, seeing Charlie and what that has meant for giving me a new purpose with running and giving me a purpose that's greater than myself, that really was a pivotal moment for me. I've subsequently had the opportunity to meet with Charlie, and he's an amazing, incredibly humble, softly spoken but very inspiring man who's really well respected amongst his peers in the running community. So it's been a privilege to meet him and to get to know him a little bit. Hoping to see him again in the lead up to Sydney Marathon this year. He's actually doing a really incredible project himself at the moment, and he's running a marathon in every state around Australia this year. I think he's called it the Indigenous Marathon Challenge, and so I think he's run either one or two of those already. Sydney will be on the list. So yeah, hoping to have the opportunity to run with him again towards the end of the year. Um, a couple of other really powerful moments for me, finishing the UTA 50 in 2019 was a really big moment for me. It's hard doing those 50K runs, not as hard as doing the 100K runs, but it was a new kind of personal frontier for me. Similarly, when I finished my first marathon in Madrid, a couple of years before that, I feel like every time you break a new distance or you break something that is beyond what you thought you would be able to do, that's kind of a new cowbell moment on a personal level. So those are probably the two for me: Madrid Marathon and UTA, and then meeting Charlie in terms of the really powerful moment that have set me up for the next stage of my running.
Wow.
Wow, that's yeah. Wow, I don't know how we top that. The only thing that I want to know though is in all of your running thoughts, then is there anything else on the horizon? Is there anything else that you've now concocted that is
I
gonna
don't
is
think
gonna
I can I don't think I can take on anything else right now. I mean, I'm always having ideas, Dave. Don't encourage me. I'm always having ideas, but for the time being, really, it's about getting into a good cadence with the fundraising, and continuing. Obviously, I've got to show up to work every day as well, and for the kids. So continuing with Capital X and really ramping up the fundraising. I'd love to share the link if you can put that in the show notes, in case people want to donate or if there are ways that people would like to get involved, to fundraise as part of what I'm doing, or to collaborate in other ways. I'm really open to doing that, having some great conversations with people who want to get involved in various ways, beyond fundraising as well. So if there's an opportunity to do that or anyone wants to reach out, I'll share all my details with you both.
Jess, have you have spoken to Charlie, right?
Yeah, I met him at the Indigenous Marathon Project pre-departure camp when all the
Oh,
the team was going over to New York last year. So we met and we had the opportunity to sit down and chat about about what I was embarking on, and I thought he might have found it a bit weird that I had been running behind him and then I'd gone away and started this big goal. So but yeah, he knows what I'm doing, and we follow each other on Strava, and I speak quite regularly with the team at IMF. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing him again soon.
yeah, I definitely would start following him on Strava. And one of the problems with Strava, like, once you're on Strava, like there's no
Yeah, once you're on
excuse, right?
Strava, there's no escaping. That's right.
Yeah.
You kept accountable. You kept accountable. Well, Jess, it's been look, uh, definitely the content that you've shared with us tonight. I feel like we could go on for hours and hours, and I know I've said that before, but it's true. Um, and we will definitely share all those details in there, and we'll definitely share it on all of the social feeds and everything like that. So, thank you for giving up some of your time to come and chat to us both. Bloody inspiring, if I do say so. And
Thank you so much, Dave and Kelvin. It's been a real pleasure. I don't know about inspiring, but it's definitely a big journey, and I could talk about running for days. So um, I think that that meme definitely rings true, probably for all three of us. Is people don't really know what they're getting into when they ask me to start talking about running, because I could talk about it for days.
but it's a perfect way to sign out because that's what we're doing here. We're talking about running and we're talking to extraordinary people. So thanks, Jess.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Thanks, Jess.